Okay, in this section we're going to be dealing with routing, and we want to be able to navigate to different components in our application. We do have a single page application. That means effectively one index.html page, so we can't route from one page to another page like we can do in a traditional HTML application, and we need to route to our different components. Currently we do not have that facility, and that's what we're going to focus on in this section. So we're going to stick with our client component to do this. This is where we're going to enable routing, but currently we don't have enough components to work with routing just now. We've only really got our home page, our nav, and our register component, and we're going to take a look at creating some more components, and we'll be using the Angular command line interface once again to do this. So I'm going to come on to a separate terminal tab inside VS Code, and we're going to create a component to display our members. So we're going to use ngG and C for components, and we're going to create this component in a members folder, and then the component name is going to be member-list, and we're just going to skip -tests. And the naming convention for Angular components is to use lowercase and separate the different words with a dash. That's kind of typical. It's not a law. You can create components using different casing, but I believe this is the most conventional way to do so. So that's the approach I've been taking and will take in this training course. So that's the command we need to create that component. So I'm just going to create that, and once again I'm skipping the tests. We're also going to create a component to display the member detailed view. So I'm just going to copy the command that I used before, but just change list to member detail. And we'll keep this in the members folder, keep all of our member related components together, and press return. And the next one we'll create is not inside the members folder. And I'm going to call this one lists. And this will be used to display a list of users that the user has liked, for example. And I'll press return to accept that and create that. And we'll create one more component while we're here, and that's going to be for messages. So I'm just going to say messages. So ngG C messages, and once again skip the tests, and that can go in its own folder as well, just like the lists one. So what we should have at the end of that little adventure is we have inside our members component a member detail and member list component, we have a messages component, and we have a list component as well. Now we need to create routes to enable us to get to these different components, and we are going to use this app_routes.ts file to do so. This is where we define our routes of type route, and they're contained inside an array. This is something that Angular just creates for us automatically when we created our templates, our new project, and a couple of other things to point out as well. In the component, then it automatically created a router outlet for us that we'll take a look and see how we'll use that soon. And also in our app config, it also added the provide router for our project as well. And if for whatever reason we didn't have those elements, then we could of course just add them fairly easily ourselves if we needed to. But since Angular does it for us, that's something that we do not need to do. Now each of our routes is going to have a path, the path used to match against. So Angular is effectively going to look at our browser URL and see which route we wish to load. So we specify a path, and the first path is going to be an empty string. And this is going to be for our home page. So we specify the component, and this is going to be for our home component. And Angular does its job, or VS Code does its job I should say, and automatically adds that import to the top. So we need a few more routes, so I'm just going to copy this down a few times. And the second path we're going to use is for our members. So we'll specify members, and this is going to open up our member list component. The third link is going to be members / and then this is going to be for our member detailed component. And we add a placeholder for the ID because this is going to be a dynamic route that's going to load up our member detail component, but each user has a different ID and would want to see a different member, for example. And the fourth link will just say lists, and that's going to be our lists component. And the fifth link will be for our messages, and that's going to be for our messages components. And then we'll just add one more link, and this is going to be a wildcard. So if none of these routes match, then it's going to effectively fall through to list1. And at the moment, because we don't have anything else, we're just going to load up the home component if they pick a route that we do not have in our routing list here. And typically for this route, we say path match and full. And if we look at the description for path match, by default, the router checks URL elements from the left to see if the URL matches a given path and stops when there is a config match. Importantly, there must be a config match for each segment of the URL, so on and so forth. And the path match strategy full matches against the entire URL. And it's important to do this when redirecting empty path routes. And that's just a general recommendation for the wildcard routes, is to use path match full. I think it still works just fine if you leave this off, but I'm really just following the normal recommendations here. Now, in order to load up one of these components, then we need to use a router outlet. And I mentioned just now that in our app component, we already have this available. So we're going to make use of this, and inside our app component HTML file, then instead of displaying app home, we'll remove this and we'll swap it with router outlet. Now, when one of our routes matches, then the router outlet is effectively replaced with the component we've specified inside our routes configuration here. So when we browse to members, then we can expect the router outlet to be swapped with the member list component, for example. So let's see if we now have routing functionality. Now, we don't have any links to click on yet, and let's log in so that we do have links to click on. But these won't do anything yet. We've still got a bit more work to do there. But what we can do for the short term is just specify the links in the route directly. And if I browse to /members, then we can see member list works. If I browse to lists, then we can see that list works. So our routing functionality is working. And now we just need to take a look at our navbar and get lists to actually do something when we click on these links. And we'll take a look at that next.